Hello there, once again, this is Doc A, and for today we're going to deal about assessment, specifically assessing our patients with mental disorders. So when we deal about assessment, we all know that assessment is the first step of the nursing process, and it involves the collection, organization, and analysis of information about the client's health. And in terms of psychiatric and mental health nursing, we could say that assessment is a process that are often referred to as the psychosocial assessment. So psychosocial assessment includes a mental status exam. Okay, so the purpose basically of this is for us to have a construct picture of the client's current emotional state, their mental capacity, and their behavioral function. So this assessment would serve as a basis for developing a plan of care for us to be able to meet the client's need, and the assessment that we could be able to gather will also serve as our clinical guidelines or baseline when we are going to evaluate the effectiveness of the treatment and the intervention or the measures of our client's progress. So, but before going and moving into the main things that we need to think of and remember when we are assessing the patient, we also need to think of the possible factors that might influence our assessment. Okay, so the first one is the client participation or the feedback. So a thorough and complete psychosocial assessment requires active client participation. If the client is unable or unwilling to participate, so probably some areas of the assessment will be incomplete or it could be vague. So the nurse may need to have several contacts with our client for us to be able to complete the whole assessment for us to gather further information as the client condition permits. Okay, so next factor that might influence our assessment is the client's health status because it can also affect the assessment, right? If the client, for instance, is anxious or if they are tired or they are experiencing some pain. So the nurse may have difficult eliciting the client's full participation during the assessment. Okay, the third factor are the misconception about the healthcare, or we could say that these are clients' previous experiences, okay, that could affect our assessment. So the client's perception of his or her circumstances can elicit emotions that might interfere with us obtaining an accurate psychosocial assessment. And if the client is reluctant to seek treatment or has had previous unsatisfactory experience with the healthcare system, most likely he or she could have difficulty answering the questions directly. Okay. So for the fourth one, we have the client's ability to understand. The nurse must determine the client's ability to hear, to read, and to understand the language being used in the assessment because those things might also affect our assessment. Of course, if they are unable to hear us clearly, so how could we expect a correct answer? Or if we are asking them to read something and if they don't know how to read, so most likely they won't be able to do that. So that is why their ability could also affect our assessment. And the last one, we have the nurse's attitude and the approach. Because nurse's attitude and approach can influence the psychosocial assessment. For instance, if the client perceives that the nurse's questions to be short or feels rushed or pressured to complete the assessment, most likely our patient may provide only superficial information or they might omit discussing problems in some areas altogether. Okay, so moving forward, so here are the usual content of our assessment when we are doing the mental status examination. Okay, so the information gathered in our psychosocial assessment can be organized in many ways. Most assessment tools or conceptual framework contain similar categories with some variety in arrangement or in order. So the nurse should use organizing framework so that he or she can assess the client in a thorough and systematic way that leads itself to analysis and serves as a basis for the client's care. So the framework for psychosocial assessment may contain the following components like the history, general appearance and motor behavior, mood and affect, thought process and content, sensorium and intellectual processes, judgment and insight, and their self-concept. So sometimes even their roles and their relationship could also be assessed, and even their physiologic and self-care concerns could also be considered when we are doing the assessment. Okay, so now let's have the discussion of them one by one. However, most likely these are the things or the steps that we're going to do. First, try to look at their general appearance. Okay, check for their mannerism, how they talk. Okay, we also need to observe their mood, their affect, and how they process their thoughts, how they organize the things that they are telling. So we also need to check their perception, cognition, and insights. And do not forget also to ask or to assess how they judge, okay, different things or different ideas. And do not forget, after doing our mental status examination or the psychosocial assessment, do not forget to thank them. Okay? So moving forward, so the first part is the history. We really wanted to know the background of our patient. Okay? So when we talk about history, it includes the client's history or the history of the present illness or the HPI. So it also includes if the client have been experienced similar difficulties in the past, or if they were able to be admitted in a hospital having the same diagnosis? And if so, what was their experience during that time? Okay, we also need to look at the family history. That is a positive, for instance, for alcoholism, or if there are history within the family who have a bipolar disorder or even suicidal ideation, because this could significantly increase the risk of the patient of having the same problems after. Okay? So aside from that, we also need to assess the age and the developmental stage of our clients. So they are important factors in doing the psychosocial assessment because the nurse needs to evaluate the client's age and the developmental level for congruence with the expected norms. Third, we also need to check on their cultural and spiritual belief because the nurse must need to be sensitive to the client's cultural and spiritual belief so that we could be able to avoid making inaccurate assumptions about his or her psychosocial functioning. And lastly, we also need to look at their beliefs about health and illness because some people view emotional or mental problems as a family concern that should be handled only among family members. So they may view seeking outside or professional help as a sign of individual weakness, while others may believe that their problems can be solved only with the right medication and they will not accept other forms of therapy. So another common problem is the misconception. The misconception that one should take medication only when they feel sick. Okay? So aside from history, we also need to look at with the general appearance and the motor behavior. Okay, so the nurse needs to assess the client's overall appearance. It includes how they dress, their hygiene, their grooming. So we need to check or to ask whether the client is appropriately dressed for his or her age or for the weather, whether the client is unkept or are they well kept. Okay. Does the client appear to be his or her stated age? Okay. Is it congruent to their chronological age? So the nurse also need to observe about the client's posture. Are they making eye contact? How about their facial expressions? And any unusual tics or tremors that they are exhibiting, we need to document those things. So specific terms that are usually used in making assessment of general appearance and motor behavior include the following. So here we could see automatism. So when we talk about automatism, these are repeated purposeless behavior that are often indicative of anxiety. So sometimes there are things that we are usually doing. However, when we do that, it signifies that we are very anxious. For example, if you like tapping your feet, okay, to the ground, or there are some who likes to twist their hair, so twisting of their hair, or drumming their fingers, tapping it on the table or on their lap. Okay, so those things are automatism. Again, when we talk about automatism, they are repeated, purposeless behavior that are often indicative of anxiety. So aside from automatism, we also have the psychomotor retardation. Okay, so we also have the psychomotor retardation. So for our psychomotor retardation, obviously retardation, so it means that it is slower than usual. Psychomotor, it's about movement. So when we deal about psychomotor retardation, it is overall slowed movement. It seems that they are in a slow motion every time. So every time they are walking or doing something, it is a slow-mo version. Okay, so we call it as psychomotor retardation. So next, we have the waxy flexibility. Okay, for waxy flexibility, what we need to remember is they could be able to maintain a posture or a position over a time, even when it is awkward or it is uncomfortable. Okay, so meaning to say that um, they could maintain that posture, they could maintain that position for a long period of time without experiencing discomforts. For example, there are nowadays it's too hot, right? It's too hot, it's too sunny. So patients with mental disorder with waxy flexibility, they could stand at an open ground for 12 hours, for 16 hours, for 18 hours without moving, even though it is too hot and it is too sunny. Okay? So we call it as waxy flexibility. They could maintain the desired position or the posture for a long period of time without discomforts. So meaning to say that when they are doing that, when they have waxy flexibility, they could stand that position for a long period of time without feeling being um, without feeling that they wanted to urinate or to make a poop or to eat or to drink. Okay, they could stand it for a long period of time. Okay, and they are not moving. They are maintaining the same position for few hours. Okay. So next we have tardive dyskinesia. I think you all know already what tardive dyskinesia is, right? So again, just for a recap for you to remember, to refresh your memories, when we talk about tardive dyskinesia, it is a permanent condition that is marked by uncontrolled lip smacking, grimacing, and tongue movement. So again, tardive dyskinesia is common as a side effect of our antipsychotic medications. So same with our akathisia. So always remember akathisia, same with makathisia. Okay, so akathisia is a feeling of something that is crawling under the skin, usually experience at the extremities, may it be at the upper extremities or the lower extremities. So people who are experiencing akathisia, you will notice that they keep on scratching their legs or their arms, okay? Even though there's nothing on it. Next, we have dystonia. So dystonia, again, it is an acute muscular rigidity and cramping. So patients, we could see patients with torticollis or rhinec like that, or opisthotonus. Okay, so the exaggerated and severe arcing of the back. Under dystonia, we also have the oculogyric crisis. Okay, and lastly, on this slide, we have echopraxia. So when we talk about echopraxia, it is a pathological imitation of posture or action of others. Okay, so you will notice that the client repeats what other people are doing. For instance, the nurse did scratch their head. So you will notice that the patient will also scratch their heads. Okay? Or the nurse yawn. So you will notice that after a few seconds, the patient will yawn as well. So again, it is a pathological imitation of posture or action of others. So usually the clients repeats what the nurses do. So that is echopraxia. Okay? So the next thing that we need to check on is the mood and affect. So we need to differentiate what is mood from what is affect. So here on the slide, we could see that the mood is a sustained emotional attitude, while affect is the way a patient's emotional state is being conveyed. Okay? So what do we mean by that? So when we talk about mood, mood refers to the client's pervasive and enduring emotional state. Okay, so the client's mood may be described as being happy, being sad, being depressed, being euphoric, being anxious, etc. Okay, so it is something that is internal, just like what is stated on our slide, our slide. So something that they can feel. That's how they feel. Okay, that is the mood. However, whatever we see, whatever comes out from our patients, that is the affect. Okay, so affect is the outward expression of the client's emotional state. So meaning to say they could be happy, they could tell that they are happy, so that is mood. But for us to see it, if we see them laughing, so that is the affect. Okay? So being happy, they are stating that they are happy, that's the mood. What we see, what we observe, that is the affect. Okay? So most likely we could say that the person is happy if we are seeing them smiling, if we are seeing them laughing. Okay? So that's affect. So sad, when they say that they feel sad, it's mood. But the affect, when we see them crying, okay? So that's affect. So they are sad because they are crying. So that's affect. So always remember, mood is something internal. They themselves can only tell it. We cannot tell it. What we can tell, what we can observe is their affect and not their mood. Okay? So here are some of the terminologies that are being used to describe one's mood. Okay? So again, just to have a recap, when we deal about mood, it refers to the client's pervasive and enduring emotional state. So the client's mood may be described as being happy, being sad, being euphoric or anxious or even angry. So some of the parameters that we could use or terminologies that we could use to describe the mood is labile. So when we talk about labile, client exhibits unpredictable and rapid mood swings. Okay, so again, there is unpredictable, so there's no stimuli, but there are a rapid mood swings. So meaning to say that they feel that they are depressed and crying, but suddenly, just a snap of the finger, you would see them um, euphoric, being too happy, okay, with no apparent stimuli. So that is labile, unpredictable. Yet there is rapid mood swings. Okay, the mood changes easily and fast. Okay, so next we have euphoric. Euphoric. So when we talk about euphoric, um, I've told you when we see EU means Inverga University, but aside from Inverga University, when we see EU, that's the normal thing. Okay, so meaning to say that euphoric is a state of mood usually marked by an almost bubbly, enthusiastic joyfulness. Okay, so if you are happy, so you are euphoric. Okay, we could see that you are too happy. Okay, but not very much. Okay, not very much, but you are happy. We could see how happy you are. You are jiggling. You are you are joyful. You are enthusiastic. Okay, so that is euphoric. On the other hand, when we talk about elated, so this is something that is extreme happiness. Okay? So being happy is euphoric, but extreme happiness is being elated. Okay? So usually elation is seen among patients with mania. Okay? So again, elation or being elated is an extreme feeling of happiness and well-being, which is in the pathologic state. So meaning to say that elation or being elated is beyond what would be a typical individual do if they are too happy. Okay. So next on the list, we have euthemic. Okay, euthemic. So again, EU is normal. Okay, so euthemic is the normal mood. It refers to the normal mood. So this is subjective, which appears appropriate to the situation. Meaning to say, if there's something that will make you smile, they are smiling. If there's something that will make you cry, and they cry, they will cry. So that is euthemic. You have the normal mood. Okay? What your mood is depends and are appropriate with the situation you are at to. Okay? So next, we have depression. So obviously, when we talk about depression, that is the feeling of sadness and helplessness. So again, for depression, it's not only being sad, but you need to feel that you are sad at the same time you are helpless. Okay? And and if you feel those things at the same time, that's what we call a depressive mood. Okay? Next on the list is apathy. So apathy is absence. Okay? Or dull. Okay? So when we talk about apathy, this is dull emotional tone. So very monotonous. When you talk, we cannot hear, we cannot feel any emotions. Okay? It's on the same tone. So we call it as apathy. Next, we have ambivalence. So again, I remember that we were able to discuss ambivalence before. And I've told you that when we deal about ambivalence, when we talk about ambivalence, it is the presence of two opposing feelings. So again, presence of two opposing feelings is known as ambivalence. Okay? It means that you love and hate the person at the same time. We call it as ambivalence. Next on the list, we have derealization. For derealization, this is the feeling of strangeness towards the environment. Okay? Meaning to say that you lost the sense of reality on your own environment. You feel different on the environment that you used to. You are on the environment that you are living at, but you feel that it is so strange. It seems that that is a new environment for you. Well, in fact, it's not. So we call it as derealization. However, if you feel the same thing on yourself, okay, so we call it as depersonalization. So again, depersonalization is feeling of strangeness towards oneself. Okay, so here are some of the mood that you might be experiencing. So on the other hand, we have affect. So again, when we talk about affect, this is something that we could see, we could observe. That is why affect is the outward expression of the client's emotional state. So some of the common terms used in assessing affect includes the following, okay? So we have the blunted affect. So for our blunted affect, so it means that you show little, okay, little, or a slow to respond facial expression. Okay, so your expression is too little. What do I mean? For instance, if you got a very high grade in MS, in medical surgical nursing, most likely you will be jumping, you will be smiling from one chick to another chick, right? Because that is the usual thing, okay, that we could be able to see. However, for blunted, yeah, you just smile a little and nod a little, then that's it. Okay, so we call it as blunted affect, showing little or a slow to respond facial expression. That's blunted affect. Next, we have the broad affect. For broad affect, you are displaying a full range of emotional expression. Okay, so meaning to say that you are very happy at one point, you are smiling at one point, then you cried at one point, then you smile again. Okay, so we call it as broad affect. Okay, so you were able to display a full range of emotional expression. Okay, the next on the list we have flat affect. For flat affect, you are showing no facial expression. So whatever happens, you have the same facial expression. Yeah, just like that. You're happy, you show like this. You're sad, it looks like this. Okay, so you're not showing any facial expression. So we call it as a flat affect. Next. Next on the list, we have the inappropriate affect. So for our inappropriate affect, you are displaying a facial expression that is incongruent with the mood or situation. Okay? For example, um, your pet dog died. Okay, but what you did is you are laughing, you are smiling. Okay, so that is inappropriate affect. Okay, because the affect or the thing that you are showing is different to what should be shown on that specific situation. Okay? And vice versa. What do I mean? There's something that you receive a very good message, a very good news, but you don't show any affect at all. So that's inappropriate affect. Okay? Lastly, we have the restrictive affect. So this one means displaying one type of expression. Okay? So there's only one expression. So what's the difference between flat affect? For flat affect, you don't have any facial expression. Okay? You're not showing any expression. That's flat affect. For restrictive affect, okay, for restrictive affect, so you are showing expression. However, very limited expressions, very limited affect. Okay? Whatever the scenario, you're showing the same face. Okay? So that is restrictive affect. So do you have any questions, clarifications? If so, you can ask it. Um, yeah, maybe you can type it on the chat box and I would be able to, or on the comment box, and I would be able to answer your queries, your questions afterwards. Okay? So thank you. So moving forward, so aside from looking on the general appearance, looking on the mood and affect, we also need to look at the thought process and the thought content. Okay? So when we talk about thought process, it refers to how the client thinks. Okay? How the client thinks. While the thought content is what the client says. So meaning to say, whatever the client actually says, that is the thought content. And it does not necessarily mean that that is the thought process. Okay, when we talk about thought process, it refers to how the client thinks. So the nurse can infer a client's thought process depending on their speech, depending on their speech pattern. Okay, so for you to know further, so here are some of the common terms on assessing the thought process and thought content. Okay, so it might include, first one, we have the circumstantiality. So what is circumstantiality? So when we talk about circumstantiality, it is also known as circumstantial thinking, or sometimes some other books are telling that it is circumstantial speech. So a client eventually answer a question, but not only after giving excessive, unnecessary detail. Okay? So let me give an example. So for instance, you ask your patient, what is your name? So the patient says that, my mom gave me my name. And it happens when my mom and my dad discusses what name they want to give me. So my father stated that he wanted to give me a name which concludes the saint on the day that I was born, while my mother wanted to incorporate the name of my grandfather on my name. That is why I was named so and so. Okay? So, do you get it when we talk about circumstantiality? So, they are going to give the answer, but only after giving excessive, unnecessary detail. Because when you ask them what's their name, you could just simply answer and give their name, not telling the history of your name, right? So, if that is the case, we call it as circumstantiality. On the other hand, we have the tangentiality, okay? Tangentiality. So for our tangentiality, okay, so sometimes it is also called as the tangential thinking or tangential speech. So they are wandering off the topic, okay? So here you could see when the speaker goes off the topic and never returns to it, okay? So In this category, the person drags an irrelevant topic to the important one. Okay, so you will see in severe cases, it may turn up into schizophrenia, for example. So in this particular condition, a person modifies the topic. So they are unable to focus on other person's conversation and they keep on making other situation in their mind. So it can lead to anxiety. So let me give you an example. So the nurse asked, "What are you doing?" So the answer will be, I was born in April 6, at 4 p.m. And my mother, during the time, is still working and she just hurried going to the hospital to give birth at me. And after that, so we have a very good and happy family. We are four in the family. So we have my mom, my dad, my sibling, and me. And we have raised in a very good manner. Okay? And so on and so forth. So they continue on giving stories. But the question is, does they or did they answer the question? Okay, so most likely, if you are going to notice, if you heard my example, so yes, they answer the person, but did they answer the question? So the answer is no. That's why in tangentiality, the speaker goes off the topic and never returns to the topic. Okay, so I'm hoping that we are good and clear with circumstantiality and tangentiality. Okay. So moving forward, we also have the term delusion. Okay. So this is also part of our thought process and even the thought content. Okay. So how they think is the thought process, and what they actually says is the thought content. So when we talk about delusion, it is a fixed false belief not based on reality. That's why it's a false belief because it is not based on reality. So usually the false belief which is inconsistent with one's knowledge and culture. So we have different types here of delusions that we could see among our patients. Okay, so one of the most common type of delusion that we could see, especially among patients with schizophrenia, is the persecutory delusion. So persecutory delusion, it is related to fear that other people or outside agencies are plotting something against them. So meaning to say that there are people around them that they feel are thinking of harming them. Okay? For instance, if they see one person looking at them, they would be asking or they will be confronting them and will be asking them if they will thinking of killing them. Okay? So that is persecutory delusion. Or for instance, your patient stated, do you know that my doctor is trying to kill me? So that is persecutory delusion. Okay? So again, they think that other people are plotting against them. Other people wants to harm them. Again, that is persecutory delusion. On the other hand, we have the grandiosity or the delusion of grandeur or grandiosity delusion. So they are the same thing. So when we talk about grandiosity, that's why it's grand. When we talk about grand and grandiosity, it is exaggerated concept of self. Okay, exaggerated concept of self. For instance, the patient says, "I'm the king of the world." Okay, so that is grandiosity. Okay, or they stated, I'm the handsomest of all people in this world. Okay? So that is grandiosity. Sometimes religious religious thoughts could also be part of grandiosity. Okay? If there is no option for religious delusion, and the patient stated that I'm the way, I'm the way for us to reach heaven, okay? To be saved by wars and flooding. Okay, so that is grandiosity. Again, if there is no religious delusion. However, if there is religious delusion, so you may answer religious delusion rather than grandiosity when it speaks about religious beliefs. Okay, so next we have ideas of reference. For ideas of reference, so here the client has inaccurate, okay? The client has inaccurate interpretation that general events are personally directed to him or her, such as hearing a speech on the news or believing the message has personal meaning. So when we talk about ideas of reference, okay, so for instance, the person is watching the TV, the television, and it's news. And on the news, there's a blind item, okay? And the person feel that the blind item is them, okay? So that what is being discussed on the television show is about him or her, okay? So we call it as idea of reference, okay? So next we have thought broadcasting. So for thought broadcasting, so it is a delusional belief that others can hear or know the client is thinking. So if you feel that other people could be able to read your mind, to hear your thoughts, so we call it as thought broadcasting. Okay? On the other hand, we have thought insertion. So for thought insertion, it is a delusional belief that others are putting ideas or thoughts into the client's head. Okay? If you will notice thought broadcasting, for thought broadcasting, they feel that other people could be able to hear what they are thinking. But now, for thought insertion, what they feel is there are other people putting something inside their head. Okay? The ideas are not from them, but it is ideas from other people that are keep on running and running on their mind. Okay, so we call it as thought insertion. And lastly, we have the thought withdrawal. So thought withdrawal, it is a delusional belief that others are talking the client's thoughts away, and the client is powerless to stop it. Okay, so for thought withdrawal, they feel that there is something that they are already thinking. And what they are thinking or what they feel is other people are taking out those thoughts on their mind and they cannot do something about it. That is thought withdrawal. Okay, so let's have some example. Okay, so for instance, you are walking on the hallway and you heard people talking. Okay, they're having some little chit chats, and suddenly you feel bad because you feel that they are talking about you. So what is that? Okay, so very good. That is ideas of reference. Okay, let's have another example. The patient or the client stated that I'm the queen of Narnia. So what is that? What type of delusion is that? Okay, so very good. That is grandiosity, delusion of grandeur. Okay, so I'm hoping that the discussions are clear in terms of delusion. So moving forward, So here are some other abnormalities in terms of thought process and the thought content. Okay? So one is neologism. So when we talk about neologism, neo means new. Okay? So these are new words. Okay, so when we talk about neologism, these are invented words that have meaning only on the client. Meaning to say that they were able to coin new word that only they or themselves could be able to understand it. Okay. Next, we have verbigeration. Verbigeration is meaningless repetition of words. Okay, from nowhere, the person just keep on telling and stating that word or those words or those phrases. So we call it as verbigeration. Okay. So perseveration is the persistence of a response to a previous question. For example, you ask them, "What's your name?" And he stated, "Adrian." Okay, Adrian. You have different question already, and still they still answer Adrian. So we call it as perseveration. So again, persistence of a response to a previous question, perseveration. Verbigeration, meaningless repetition of words. Out of nowhere, you just hear the person telling or stating key, 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 key. Okay, so that's verbigeration. Neologism is having their own words. They have their own lingo, okay, that we cannot understand, that they only understand among themselves. And lastly, we have echolalia. Echolalia is the pathologic repetition of words of others. For instance, the nurse asks, "What's your name?" So what will the client answer? "What's your name?" And the nurse again asks, "I'm asking you, what's your name?" The patient will tell, "I'm asking you, what's your name?" Okay, so we call it as echolalia. So that is pathologic repetition of words of others. So meaning to say that the client repeats what other people says. Okay, I'm hoping that you are enjoying and you are learning at the same time. Okay, so here are some more. Okay, so we have word salad. So for word salad, flow of unconnected words that convey no meaning to the listener. So meaning to say that for word salad, these are incoherent mixture of words and phrases. So for example, um, the ship languish, blue trains suffer. Window books, dog hands run. Run deck making dinner sunglasses menu. Okay, so did you get something from that? Okay, even though we just have one sentence of that, could we be able to understand? Okay, for instance, again, windows book, dogs hands run. Is there meaning on that? So again, for word salad, it is a flow of unconnected words that convey no meaning to the listener. Okay? So the next one, we have clang association. For clang association, what you need to remember is rhyme. There are rhyming of words. Okay? So the sound of words gives direction to the flow of thought. So they are groupings of words, usually rhyming words, that are based on similar sounding sounds, even though the words themselves don't have any logical reasons to be grouped together. Okay, so let me give you an example for this. Okay, um, here comes, sorry, yeah, okay, so an example of clang association, there's a mile-long dial trial, a wild child. Okay, so are there rhyming on what I have stated? Or another example, here she comes with a cat catch rat match. Okay, so if you will notice, the cat and the rat are rhyming. The catch and match are rhyming. Okay, so those are examples of clang association. Again, for clang association, do not forget that they are giving rhyming words on it. So let's have another example. He rained the train, grains, train, the crane. Okay, so they always speak on rhymes. That's clang association. Okay, so next we have loose association. For loose association, it is disorganized thinking that jumps from one idea to another with little or no evident relation between the thoughts. Okay? So again, always remember for loose association, it is disorganized thinking, and one sentence is not directly or is not related to the next sentence. Okay? Or the next sentence is not related to the first sentence that we are having. Okay? So again, there is no relation from the first sentence to the second sentence to the third sentence. They are just giving some phrases or some sentences, but each sentences are not related with one another. Okay, so let me give an example. I like to dance. All people have hands. Can't go to school. I have two hands. Oh, you man, I'm good. Okay. So ano daw? So that's loose association. Or sometimes you could also see it as looseness of association. Okay, they're the same. So the next one, we have flight of ideas. For flight of ideas, there is excessive amount and rate of speech composed of fragmented or unrelated ideas. Okay, so again, there are fragmented ideas on the sentence and will shift on another sentence. But here, the shifting of sentence number one is somewhat related to sentence number two. And sentence number two is somewhat related to sentence number three. Unlike with the loose association that there's no relation at all. Okay? So um I'm hoping that we are good and you could still be able to understand, okay, the examples that I am giving you. Okay. So let's have an example of flight of ideas. Okay. So let's have the first one. I need to buy some bread. Bread is baked in an oven. Oven. Heaven. I feel like I'm in heaven. Heaven is up, the sky is blue. I love bluebirds, but I need to get my car fixed. Okay? So that's an example of flight of ideas. If you will notice, the first sentence is somewhat related to the second sentence. The second sentence is somewhat related to the third sentence. But if you're going to look at all of the sentences, it doesn't really make a sense. Okay? So that's an example of flight of ideas. Another example, I'm talking to you, but the light is blinking on the phone. The phone is a bright color. Yellow is the sun. I need to get sunglasses. It's too bright. Okay? So that's flight of ideas. Do you get and do you see the difference between the word salad? Word salad is unconnected words. Okay, clang association is rhyming of words. Loose association is There are sentences, but each sentence is not related with one another. While flight of ideas, for flight of ideas, somewhat, one sentence is somewhat related to the next sentence. The next sentence is somewhat related to the next sentence. Okay? And lastly, we have the thought blocking. It's stopping abruptly in the middle of the sentence. Okay? They are telling something, then they stop all at once. I'm not hungry. Do you have a dog? Then they just stop and forgot what they're going to tell and what they are talking about. Okay? So I'm hoping that everything's clear so far. Okay, so before we move on to our next topic, are there any questions? Yeah, if none, shall we proceed to the next one? And when we are dealing and talking about the thought process and the thought content, we should also need to assess our clients for suicide or harm towards others. Okay, so the nurse must be able to determine whether the depressed person or the hopeless client has any suicidal ideation or any lethal plan on their minds. So the nurse does this so by asking the client directly, do you have thoughts of suicide or what thoughts of suicide have you had? Okay, so moving forward, we also need to assess for the sensorium and the intellectual process. So basically, when we are dealing and talking about sensorium, we are referring to the orientation. Okay, so orientation refers to the client's recognition of a person, place, time, situation, or events. That is knowing who and where he or she is at the correct date, at the correct day, and year. So this is often documented as oriented times three spheres. So three spheres stands for person, place, and time. And occasionally, sometimes, when we also included the situation or the event, so that will be oriented times four spheres. Okay. So if we have only three, it pertains to person, place, and time. The fourth sphere is the situation or the event. Okay. So aside from that, we also have memory. Okay. So the nurse directly assess the memory, may it be recent, remote, or immediate memory. So when we deal about remote memory, these are the things that we assess the patient's memory for important events that occurred in the patient's life history. For, for example, you could ask them, what is the significance of being a 12-year-old? Okay, so that is the remote memory. So if there are already 23, so that's um, more than 10 years ago. So it is considered patient's life history. So anything talking about the past, that's a remote memory. Okay? So for our recent memory, these are events that have occurred in the time span of hours to weeks. Okay, so meaning to say, if you ask them what they had for lunch today, so we already it transpired a few hours ago. So if you ask that, that is recent memory. However, when we deal with immediate memory, so basically these are events that have just occurred and which covers a time span of seconds to minutes. For instance, if I ask you what does um, ambivalence means, okay, so hoping that you still remember that since it only took us a few minutes ago. So it is still on the immediate memory. So again, immediate memory is second to minutes. But when we are talking about the memories that happens within hours to weeks, so that is recent memory. But when we are talking about years, it happened years ago, ages ago, so we call it as remote memory. Okay? And next on our list is amnesia. For amnesia, we all know that amnesia is the inability to recall memories or to recall events. Okay, we have two types of amnesia. We have the retrograde amnesia and anterograde amnesia. So if what you cannot remember is what happened in the past and you could still remember what happened today, so that is retrograde amnesia. Okay, so again, when you have retrograde amnesia, you lose the existing, the previously made memories. So you lose what have happened years ago, but you could still remember what happened today, what happened yesterday. So that's anterograde amnesia. So example, The Notebook, if you were able to watch the film. So that's retrograde amnesia. On the other hand, we have the anterograde amnesia. For our anterograde amnesia, you can't form new memories. Okay, meaning to say, you forgot what happened today, what happened yesterday. But what you can remember is what happened years ago. Okay, example is the 51st date of Drew Barrymore and Adam Sandler. So that's anterograde amnesia. Again, if you remember what happened today and yesterday, but cannot remember what happened 10 years ago, that's retrograde amnesia. While anterograde amnesia, you cannot remember what happened today, what happened yesterday, but you could still remember, and it is still vivid in your mind what happened 10 years ago. That's anterograde amnesia. Okay? So moving forward, so we have other intellectual processes, okay? So let's start with confabulation. For confabulation, this is filling in memory gaps. For instance, a person forgot what happened and they just tells anything about what happened, even though that's not true. Okay, just to make sure that they would still have a good sense of self. So that is confabulation. Again, confabulation is filling in memory gaps. Okay. Another thing that we need to do or to remember is the term deja vu and jamais vu. Okay. When we talk about deja vu. So it is a French phrase that translates literally as already seen. Meaning to say there are times that you weren't haven't into a specific place. Technically, that is your first time to go to that place, but you feel that you already been there. Okay, so that's deja vu. So another example of deja vu, sometimes it's not the place, it's the situation, it's the scenario. When there are things that you feel it already happened, but it's only happening now. So that's deja vu. So it seems that you've already seen the place or the situation where in fact it is your first time to go there or to be in that situation. We call it as deja vu. On the other hand, we have jamais vu. Okay, for jamais vu, it's a French phrase which means never seen. Okay, it is the opposite of deja vu. Remember, for deja vu, it's your first time there, but you feel that you have been there already. Okay, for jamais vu, it's not your first time there, but when you go there, it seems that it's your first time. You cannot remember anything. What happened before? You can't remember the place, the situation. Okay, so we call it as jamais vu. Okay, so moving forward, I'm hoping that everything is still good and clear. So other things that we need to check is their ability to concentrate. So the nurse also need to assess the client's ability to concentrate by asking the clients to perform certain tasks like spell the word world, spell it in backwards. So those things are some tests on concentration. Or recite numbers from 3, adding 3 and 3 and 3, okay, up to 300. So that is ability to concentrate. You are assessing the client's ability to concentrate. But aside from that, we also need to check their abstract thinking, their abstract reasoning. So when we talk about abstract thinking, it is the ability to understand concepts that are real. Okay? So basically, we could talk about, you could ask them about freedom, about vulnerability. So, and try to ask them to explain that. Okay? So that is abstract thinking. On the other hand, we have concrete thinking. So for our concrete thinking, okay, it is continually giving of literal translation and meaning. Okay, so let's have an example. Do not put all your eggs in one basket. Okay, so for concrete meaning, they will be just telling that do not put all your eggs on one basket, because when that basket is gone, everything's gone. You don't have any more eggs. Okay, so that's concrete thinking. Again, concrete thinking is the literal translation. Okay. However, if we're going to check on the abstract thinking, if you ask them, what do you think is the meaning of do not put all your eggs on one basket? So maybe they will tell that do not put all your resources in one idea, because when it fails, you will lose everything. Okay, so something like that. Can you see the difference between abstract thinking and concrete thinking? Again, literal meaning is concrete thinking, while understanding the concept is abstract thinking. Okay? So, and lastly, we have some sensory perceptual alterations. Okay? So, some things that, or some abnormalities that we might be seeing. So, one is hallucination. When we talk about hallucination, it is false sensory perception or perceptual experience that do not really exist. Meaning to say, there is no external stimuli, but you are seeing things or you are hearing things even though there's no stimulus. That is hallucination. So, meaning to say, when we talk about hallucination, it involves the five senses and the bodily sensations. Among all of the hallucination, the most common thing is visual hallucination. So, for example, I see dead people, but no one could be able to see that. It's only you. There's no stimuli for everyone to see where are you coming from. Okay, so that is hallucination. Again, false sensory perception that do not really exist. What do you need to remember on hallucination? There is no external stimuli. Okay, so the most common is auditory. So some are hearing things even though there's no stimuli. Okay, and the other one is visual. Okay, the second one, we have the illusion. Illusion is misperception of an actual external stimuli. So meaning to say that there is a stimulus, okay, but you have a different take on the stimulus. For example, you were able to see um, a snake on the curtains, but it's just the curtain rod that is in there. Okay, you just perceive the curtain rod to be snake. Okay, or for instance, there are cords, lamp cords, lamp cords that are there. Okay, and you misinterpreted that and thought that it was a snake. So again, difference, hallucination, no external stimuli. But if there is an external stimuli and you see something else there, so that is illusion. Okay. Other things, we also need to check on the judgment and insight of a person. Okay, for judgment and insight. So basically, judgment refer to the ability to interpret one's environment and situation correctly, and to adopt one's behavior and decision accordingly. Okay? On the other hand, when we talk about insight, it is the ability to understand the true nature of one situation and accept some personal responsibility for that situation. So again, if you are trying to interpret the environment, the situation correctly, that's judgment. Okay? But if you understand the nature of the situation, okay, that is insight. So lastly is about self-concept. We also need to check on the self-concept of a person. So self-concept is the way one view oneself in terms of their personal growth, in terms of their worth as a person and their dignity. So to assess, the nurse can ask the client to describe himself or describe herself, what characteristics he or she likes, and what he or she would be able to change later on. Okay, so answering those things includes one's self-concept. Okay, so basically, these are all the things that you need to remember for us to know and to assess our patients, specifically the psychosocial assessment or the mental status examination for our clients. So, do you have any questions, class? Yeah. So, if you have any, do not forget to use our comment box, ask the questions there, and I will be answering your questions later on. Okay? So if you don't have any other questions, I'm wishing you all well. God bless everyone and good luck. So have a nice day and stay safe. Once again, this is Doc A, wishing you all well and hoping that you were able to learn something from our discussions today. Okay? So with that, thank you very much and God bless.